minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations, I am Spaceboy.
And I'm Surlana.
And this is Spaceboy Universe. It is September 10th, 2016, and we're on show number 053. And tonight, we have Micah Hanks, and we will take your calls if he lets you. As always, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at the SB Universe. Follow Surlana at Surlana, and me, your lovable Spaceboy, at Spaceboy Music.
And remember, hashtag your tweets with hashtag SB Universe or hashtag Space Cadets.
Hey, hang out with all the Space Cadets by going to spaceboyuniverse.com. Click the dancing chat bubble in the player, and that will get you in with all the cool kids.
And you can find us on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search for Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, speaking of YouTube, you know you can find more than the Spaceboy Universe archive of shows. There is video content from Spaceboy Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more.
And if you can't catch the show live, that's no problem. You can take the universe with you on the go with Spreaker, SoundCloud, and iTunes.
Because we love broadcasting. So, hey, how are you, Surlana?
I'm good, and before we officially start, if you don't mind,
sure,
before
right
we
ahead.
Get into our usual shenanigans,
okay.
I'd like to let everyone know that's listening that today, September 10th, is International Suicide Prevention Day. And if you want to know more about it, you should go to the International Suicide Prevention Association's website at isasp.info. Now, this association promotes fostering open, caring connections with those affected by suicide or who may be at risk of suicide by remembering to connect, communicate, and care, because communication is the cornerstone of suicide prevention. And like I said, if you need to know more, www.isasp.info. Thanks
for that PSA there, Surlana, and good information, and hopefully people can find that pretty good.
Quick shout out to my sister for showing up in chat. Thanks.
Oh, hello, sister. So, once again, we're doing all right. How was this week for you, Surlana?
It was busy for his work, and other than that, it's just time keeps on slipping. It's all a blur.
Always slipping into the future, as I always like to think of it. So, have you read any good articles this week?
Well, you told me some things, and I went and looked up some things.
Mm-hmm. I always like it when you start off with your things because it's stuff that I might have missed or something. So hit me.
Well, the first one you told me about, you said Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, is going to bring the Jonestown Massacre to life with HBO's, I guess it's a show or an episode called Raven. I'm not sure what Raven means or if it's part of a larger narrative. But that's something I'd like to talk to Gordon about, is if he'll be able to see it and what his impressions are, because our friend Gordon Roop did write a publication on, it's called The Book of Jones, and you can get that on Amazon. If you need that link, you can always look him up, Gordon Roop, R-U-P-E.
Yeah, he was just on the show August the what was it, the 20th? Yes, remember all that with the technical issues, and
Yes.
but we finally nailed that one down. And
We went so far to fix this to send the man some
headphones.
headset, and he
Yeah.
sounds like Barry White now. But I'm really intrigued by how Gilligan will tackle that issue.
Well, he'll bring a certain gravitas to the whatever he does, because it'll be interesting and how he does his characters and his performance pieces, and whether it's Better Call Saul or whether it's Breaking Bad. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I mean, the subject matter alone is very interesting. I told you before that I've been fascinated by the Jonestown Massacre. One, because it takes place around my birthday during the 70s.
Oh, yes.
And so
No, it's on your birthday.
Well, yeah. Well, a couple of how it leads up to that particular day in the 70s, but also, I was a big fan of watching In Search Of. So
I miss shows like that.
yeah. So between In Search Of, I've always been fascinated by that and many other cases on that particular show. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with as far as his angle, and our good friend Gordon Roop of the show. We'd like to get his angle on it, so we'll have to invite him back for at the beginning of one of our shows, just to get his 2 cents on that.
It says that his adaptation will focus on Jim Jones, his followers, and the mysterious story of how many of them came to give up their lives for this man, which is something that fascinates me in a way, because it fascinates me because I don't understand it, and that's why I like to learn more about things like that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we're always giving shout-outs, and I want to congratulate our friends at the OSI 74. They hit 1 million surfed on Roku, so that's exciting to hear that they've been viewed over 1 million times. So congratulations to
OSI 74?
OSI 70 OSI 74. Yes.
Yeah, so go on
Our
your Roku and check out. It's a channel, and you can watch all kind of crazy stuff. It's
yeah,
awesome.
In fact, Mr. Lobo heads up a lot of that, and he's been on the show before. We'll have to get him back at some time. Maybe we
See if we can, yeah.
Maybe we can get him back sometime, maybe in October or something like that.
Remembers
Yeah, I'm sure he will. So, what else you got on there?
Well, here's something I've known that was pure logic to me, but you hear something your whole life as a kid, and it gets repeated as you grow up, and no one ever says anything about it to dispute it, and now it becomes what seems like a fact, and that is, here's the last word on the 5-second rule. There's no such thing as you've got 5 seconds before it's tainted. The minute it makes contact with something, it's done. So you're better off catching it before it drops or throwing it in the trash once it makes contact. Now, the strange thing about the study they've done recently is they found that women are more apt to pick up stuff that's fallen to the floor than men.
Really?
I don't know if women are just more frugal or, but they found that, salmonella is far more likely to hang out on substances, especially like wood. And if it's your food is more wet, or if, a larger portion hits, there's a great chance for significant chance of contamination. So
Well, here's my take on
there's
that.
really no good way to eat stuff off the floor, people.
The fact is, I take this angle. If it fell on dog poop, would you still eat it?
Yeah.
So no,
It's about the same thing. Some comedian said, "Sure, you can eat off my floors. There's plenty of things down there. All the food's down there."
Oh, that is just tragic. Yeah, it was fun watching that on MythBusters, how they went through that whole thing. Speaking of MythBusters,
They've proved it to be inaccurate.
The B Team, Carrie and Tori and Grant are going to be on a Netflix show coming this December 9th called White Rabbit.
Yes, which is a strange title for what it is they're doing.
I think it's basically follow the rabbit down the hole kind of thing, and there will be, I hate to say that it's kind of similar to MythBusters, but from what I read, they'll be going down and kind of debunking things and, just kind of pretty much what they were doing on MythBusters, but new show for them. I'm glad that they I've got this. I'm looking because it's Netflix. It's binge watchable for me, so that should make you
I
excited.
never cared much for the B team. I only like Jamie and Adam. So
I understand. But hey, before we get, I have many topics here, but
Oh, sure.
I want to get Micah on, but I want to cover the iPhone situation.
that was my only other thing I had to talk about.
We read each other's minds. Go ahead.
Well, the thing about the next iPhone 7, is that we'd heard all these rumors that they're doing away with the traditional headphone jack, and turns out the rumors are true. They now have this new setup with these wireless earbuds. They look like your current earbuds that you get that comes with iPhone, but without the cord.
Okay, let's properly give these people the idea of what they look like. If you've ever seen
I'm going to put a link in the
automatic toothbrush thingies, what would be one?
The head on like an Oral-B toothbrush or something.
The head part. It looks a little about. I'm not saying it's that long, but the attachment that comes onto it looks like something you would stick in your ear, and then it would just kind of dangle like jewelry out of your ear.
They don't connect together, so there's no cord or wires between these little earbuds. So, boy, are you going to lose those quick. So, there will be audio over the Lightning port via Bluetooth or a Bluetooth-like low-powered protocol option for AirPods. I think that's what they're calling the Buds, AirPods.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're saying that Androids are going to follow in the next year or two. I don't understand what the problem is with a traditional stereo headphone jack, that this is a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. What is the problem? The problem is they can't make enough money off of it?
I've heard something to the effect, and I'd have to read more about this, that the digital signal that's created on the iPhone is not actually what you hear through your current headphones. That because it has to convert from digital to analog to listen to your headphones, that they want to give you the best sounding digital experience.
Well, apparently the best sounding digital experience is $160.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
And I don't think it comes with the phone.
And that's what I was going to say. It doesn't come with the phone. That's a separate accessory. And I can only imagine, what is the battery life on these things?
They actually, not now for the little head earphone things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the battery life of the iPhone 7 is supposed to be better. The faster processor, cooler cameras, a camera that will take a picture from the front and the back at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Increased quality of that. Now, if you put the headphone thing aside,
Right.
and then you look at all the other stuff, it sounds real cool. But the problem is, will I be able to charge my phone while I'm listening to something on it?
That is the $1 million
That's
question.
the only thing I can't understand. And if they're going to move, Android's going to move to something similar, am I just going to have to baby my iPhone 6 till, it dies? Or
Well, let's look at the situation. I guess it's kind of good that you're going away from the wired thing, because wired can be problematic.
Oh, let me tweet y'all a picture of something why corded headphones are problematic. Just go to @the SB Universe, and I'll show you what Spaceboy's headphones look like right now.
Okay, I officially put out the word that the reason why they look that way is so that Surlana doesn't take my headphones. But the reality is,
No.
when I unplug my headphones, I just kind of wrap them up on my hand and then put them in my pocket, and then over time they become tangled. But it is what it is, and maybe I could benefit from a wireless thing. But the thing is that we've had wireless headphones before. Plantronics, great company, and I still have my set. But those things only last about 4.5, maybe 5, pushing it hours.
Yeah.
I mean,
The sound quality is not as good as the iPhone corded earbuds.
All right. And but anyway, it is what it is. So on that note, why don't we get out of here and take a quick break? In fact, we want to get Micah Hanks on.
Yeah, he wants to listen to us.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. Yeah, we want to listen to him. So, and I know you do too. So let's see here. Let me cue up the musical break. I'm going to take a musical break to make it short, and we'll save the big mega break for later. Surlana, how does that sound?
Oh, that sounds fun.
All right. We will be back after this brief musical interlude.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Tonight, we're going to be talking to Micah Hanks. Micah Hanks is a writer, researcher, podcaster, lecturer, and radio personality whose work addresses a variety of areas, including history, politics, scientific theories, and unexplained phenomena. He's open-minded but skeptical in his approach to research and has examined a broad variety of subjects. He is author of several books, including his most recent work, The Ghost Rockets, as well as his 2011 release, Magic, Mysticism, and the Molecule, The Search for Sentient Intelligence from Other Worlds. Hanks has served as a consultant and editor and columnist for Fate magazine. He is a staff blogger for Mysterious Universe, and he's written for a variety of print publications, including New Dawn, has appeared on TV and radio programs that include Coast to Coast AM, Beyond Belief with George Norrie, Whitley Strieber's Dreamland, National Geographic's Paranatural, History Channel's Guts and Bolts, CNN Radio, the Jeff Rense Program, and many others. His weekly podcast, The Grailian Report, is available at www.grailianreport.com. And in addition, he has a news and current events podcast called Middle Theory, available at www.middletheory.com. Please welcome Micah Hanks.
Many greetings, and how are you guys tonight?
We are fabulous, Micah. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Well, it's been my pleasure just to be able to take a night off so that I could do this, because in truth, and I always tell folks this, and you guys know this too, my life's more or less an open book, for good or for ill, and therefore I've been so busy lately. I've had to tell a lot of my friends, sorry guys, I've been so busy that I'm too busy really to make the normal rounds like I do, and so I haven't been doing a lot of interviews. And in advance of this event I did here in Asheville with the Coast to Coast folks, I was invited on the show, and I asked them, could we postpone till October? So this is the first interview I've done since the event, and it's really good to be on with you guys. I mean, I'm actually taking a night off from the traveling and the gigging thing, being a musician like you, Space Boy. So, yeah, good to be here.
Well, we appreciate you being on.
Well, hopefully we make it fun with your time.
Because, here at Spaceboy Universe, we kind of change it up. We have a connection to the crowd that you've been hanging out with, and we've always taken it from the angle of we enjoy doing that, but we want to know, we've heard all the kind of the typical questions asked from the people in our community. What's beyond that? And that's what we try to hit that angle. So
we're going to hit it where, he covers certain topics, and some of those cross over with ours. And we cover history, fringe science, gaming, music, pop culture, and technology.
Which should be right up your angle.
We could talk about any of the above, all of the above, in fact, I hope, because like you guys mentioned, I do a news and current events podcast called Middle Theory. I almost said politics there at the end, because this year being a political year, we're covering a lot of that. So there's a good blend of stuff that I follow. And it's kind of weird because I'm sure you guys know when you're a podcaster or a radio host, you have to come across sounding a certain way, and you have to make things, especially these days in this age of the snack-sized culture, or the soundbite culture, however you want to call it. People's attention spans go right out the window, and so you have to learn to be able to be funny and engaging and inviting all at once, or else you'll just put people to sleep. And that's an interesting dynamic. When I'm at home by myself, people are thrilled to learn that I like to sit around and be quiet. I'll go all day without talking. I'll read books, or I'll be writing all day, or working on projects, writing projects, art projects, whatever. But the only time I ever speak is if I have to, which is when I'm on the microphone, or if I'm emceeing at a show with my band. But anyway, all the more reason to have good conversation, because I've been virtually silent all day, and it's good to be here having a good talk with you guys right off the bat.
So when do you find a time to, reach your fortress of solitude, if you will, and just, push people away and say, hey, I've got to have me time? I mean, it seems when I've, listened to you, I've watched you, and it's like 24/7. I mean, where do you find that time?
Well, as I've gotten busier, and that's the funny thing, a few people kind of ask, it's like, what are you so busy doing? Why you always say you're so busy? I don't really know. I mean, this has been the year it just kind of happened. The podcast downloads, the Twitter interactions, but beyond social media and technology, just the number of things happening, and just the sense that it's just go, go, go. I guess everybody gets to this point with whatever they do in their business, and that's always a good thing. I'm unusual because I've made it my business to be a writer, a researcher, a traveler, and a podcaster, and a musician. And if you're going to be successful doing that kind of thing and living that kind of lifestyle, you have to do it a lot. And really the big balance for me is trying to maintain a certain genuous, or I guess, what would you call it, a genuosity? Mm-hmm. I try to be genuine, I guess, in other words. And in order to do so, I think you have to kind of limit how much you promote what you do. I get so tired of seeing people on social media, everything they post is something promoting something they do, or something that's generally aimed at self-promotion. So I try to do as little of that as possible, and yet, of course, I have to be mindful on the business side of things. How do you grow what you do? But the formula seems to work for me. Just be friendly, be polite, don't push it down people's throats, and just know that if you're doing what you do well enough, people will find you and they'll like it, or if they don't, they'll tell you, and from time to time that happens too. So this has just been that year, and I couldn't tell you exactly why, but I've certainly had to actually make time for what you were talking about there. And I think the best two times are early in the morning, because the busier I get, the less I find that I sleep. Usually my schedule these days is I'll go to bed at about 2 local time, 2 a.m., and then I get up at about 6 or 7. I might not get out of bed immediately, but my body does not let me sleep these days, usually beyond 7, 8 at the very latest, but usually I'm up by 6:30 or 7.
Sounds just like him right here.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand me. I'm like, just leave me alone. It's Saturday for crying out loud.
To be honest with you, with me, it's that driven nature in my soul that I have this vision of the future, and I'm like rushing to get it done. And you know, for me, it just, I don't know. I guess I can't stand to stay in bed all day. It's just I want to seize the day, and I guess I kind of see that in what you're saying too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love to lay around and just kind of not really be asleep, but just lay there. But you know, I'm the kind of person that sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night. Like I got on this kick about a year ago where math became like a hobby, and in whatever spare time I had, I was trying to learn calculus. And yeah, exactly. And
Yeah, I'm like going, nerd.
you know, I would wake myself up from dreams, or my dreams would wake me up, and I would be trying to work math problems in my mind. And I don't know, it's interesting because to me, I often come back to Carl Jung, not just Carl Jung, but many of the varied theories about what our mind is, in a sense, beneath the more obvious aspects of our personality. And I kind of wonder, because I know that there are certain archetypes that I identify with, and boy, let me tell you, the people who follow what I do and the people who I meet when I go to events and you know, even my friends, they are very quick to let me know what those archetypes are. And this is why, of course, this funny nickname has come about, the Doctor. You know, you're the Doctor, you know. and there's to a lesser degree, there's also, I think, this archetype of the questioner or the detective. So Doctor Who and Sherlock Holmes have really become kind of tropes that my fans kind of throw at me, and I'm very honored. Although, you know, maybe you know, there's a sense of unworthiness, because I mean, you know, on one hand we have a timeless individual in the most literal sense of a 2,000-year-old traveling space alien who has a box that's bigger on the inside, and he travels throughout space and time in this. And then on the other hand, we have the greatest detective in all history who never really existed, and yet out of Doyle's work and the fictional writings of Sherlock Holmes, we have modern forensic science and many advances in the study of criminal sciences. So, I mean, it's fascinating, really, the way that fiction influences who we are. And by the same token, in reverse, I hope to try and understand, why am I the way that I am, and what is the reason that this relationship exists between the associations in terms of fiction and archetypes that people make with me. You know, we do it with people that we're attracted to. Oh, there's a certain type you like, you know. I know they say don't judge a person based on their looks, and that's not what we're talking about, but sometimes I think that we have certain archetypes of people that we might be romantically attracted to. We might feel a certain kinship with a certain person because they remind us of somebody else. Or maybe we don't even have to have an explanation. We just feel a certain connection with individuals. And that's what this is all about. So on that deeper side, I'm fascinated with, who are we really below who the world knows us to be?
Like when I was meeting with Spaceboy the first time, we haven't met, we were doing email, and I told him, I said, you know, I have all of Red Dwarf on DVD, and he goes, we should meet. And that's how we connected.
Well, you know, that's a legitimate way that more and more people connect these days. And that's the funny thing is, that now it's easier for people to do that thanks to the reach of technology. I think about the fact that many of my favorite people and my best friends, truly best friends, I've only shared physical space with once or twice. Some of them I've never actually met in person, but the correspondence and the communication that not just social media, but technologies like Skype, which is allowed for this interview tonight. I mean, these kind of things have really closed the gaps that once existed. And it's on a very subtle level, it's fundamentally changing who we are, how we interact, and what we are capable of doing, which is both exciting and terrifying at once.
But if you could, I think you're somewhat younger than myself and Spaceboy here, just to be delicate there. I don't call anybody's age out. I don't know if you recall the 80s, but if you could go back in time and be dropped off for a day, and they'll come back and get you, if they could drop you off anywhere in the 80s, would you go?
Yeah, I mean, I lived through most of the 80s. I'll just tell you, I'm 33 years old, the Masonic year, and which is funny because a lot of people kind of go, wait, hold on, Micah, you're 33 years old? And it's usually a little different. Let me see, I wonder if I've got my sound bite. I usually have the, I can't find it. Here it is, okay. Micah, you're 33? There we go. I had to do it right. But and the thing is because my listeners, for instance, will write in and say, when I first heard you on your podcast, I heard a maybe 50-something-year-old guy, saw a beard.
It's a sense of maturity you can get from your sound.
And as we were talking about earlier, I think it's, to an extent, I think it's that accent as well. And people have this vision in there, which is a kind of funny thing as well. There is the image that one has when they hear a voice without having seen a face. And never have I ever had somebody write to me and say, just saw a picture of you and you look exactly how I thought you would. I've never had that happen. Everyone has always said, your voice doesn't match your face. I see a much older man when I hear you, and then I see your face, and it's like, what? So, but I lived through most of the 80s. I was born in 1983, so if I could go back to 1989 or 88, that would be a good time, but I would go back to any point, really. I mean, that anybody wanted to drop me off. If I could go back further, I'd love to do that as well.
Hey, Micah, let's pick it up after our bottom of the hour break. You are listening to SpaceboyUniverse.com, and our guest tonight is Micah Hank, and we'll be right back after this.
are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Does that crack you up every time?
Yeah, it cracks me up. I was just, Micah, do you remember Omni magazine?
Yes, it recently came back.
And it's coming back, yeah.
Yeah, Omni Reboot. And how I learned about it, once again, we
Facebook.
Well, actually, it was social media. Yes, it was Twitter. They followed me, and I thought, no, what? Omni Reboot? Which is really cool because, I mean, it's the best combination of science fiction, futurism, and there's, a little splash, a little smattering of ufology in there from time to time. Recently, I went to the website and checked it out, and they had interviewed Jacques Vallée, who is arguably, I think, probably the best and my favorite ufologist of the last century, and still active today.
Oh, yeah.
But, Werner Vinge also, the mathematician from California and science fiction writer, his expose, well, it wasn't really an expose, it was an exposition, I guess we might call it, or a presentation, a lecture, which was kind of formulated into an article format. It appeared in Omni magazine, and it was the first to use that term technological singularity. Ooh. So, yeah, Omni's got quite a history of the advancement of human thought. And,
but their cover artwork will never be as good as it was, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, some things change, I guess, and so do we, and so do times. But I'm just glad to see that they're back.
That'll be great. So, do you want to start with hammering the sky with questions?
Well, I mean, like I said,
keep it organic.
When I was telling you before he called, or before we got him on the air, that we could just drop a point, and then it would be just like ripples on a pond that he could just expand on it. But Micah, I had a chance to check out some YouTube videos. And the one video I found interesting was, and I'm looking through my notes as here we go. Yeah, was when you were playing some music with Charles Wood. And I guess you played a tune from Jimmy Martin. And I was just blown away with your guitar skills, and you could pick it like nobody else I can imagine. But you actually have a great singing voice, which I'm going to say it surprised me because I wasn't expecting it, because after the many things I was doing research-wise, I wasn't expecting you to belt out that music, and then, of course, the vocals they came along with it. So tell us a little bit about your history in music.
Well, it's funny. My father is a very talented musician, among other things. He speaks Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and that was his major in college was classics, which basically a blend of history and also languages, which was perfect for what he later ended up getting into, which was the ministry, and he's an active member of the clergy in the Episcopal Diocese of Western North Carolina. That said, he's also had a long history of interest in mysteries and things, and he was the first. I was 17 years old when he threw a dossier down on the table after dinner one night of his personal notes about Rennes-le-Château in France, and the idea of the purported Templar treasure that may have been kept there and that Berenguer Saunier may have stashed away. And as a kid, I'm thinking, what's this? But it's great because I've grown up, kind of in a little bit more of an amicable relationship than what we saw in film, but nonetheless similar to the third Indiana Jones film, where there's Henry Jones, and then you find his dad's just as interesting and a little older and quirkier, and I think that's my dad. So long story short, I grew up also watching Dad play music, and by the time I was 5 years old, we'd hit the road, and I remember the long drives up to Gallipoli, Ohio, right near the famous Point Pleasant, the location known for the Mothman incidents that occurred back in the late 60s. And Dad played in bluegrass bands. Now, I was a rocker, really pretty much from about 4th grade on. Started playing guitar pretty seriously in 2nd or 3rd grade, and nowadays I play bluegrass like Dad did. It's funny how things come full circle. But I recently tweeted some pictures because it's funny, the music thing. I play with Charles Wood, like you mentioned, and he is a 2-time national champion banjo player. If you go online and you search YouTube for David Letterman Show, Foggy Mountain Breakdown, Steve Martin, you'll see a segment from a few years ago where Steve Martin went on David Letterman's show before he retired, and they did a segment where they had 5 men with banjos who know how to use them. And at about 1 minute and 45, 50 seconds into the video, there's a guy named Charles Wood who takes the break. That's my banjo player. And before I met him, that's what he became known for was, he was the guy on Letterman with Steve Martin. He and Steve are really good friends, and you'll see why when you watch that video. Charles is just an immense talent, and he and I played a country club show together with our band Nitrograss just last night. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny how things just come full circle. But yeah, I got into bluegrass because it's a bit of a family tradition, and my brother and I, after years and years of playing rock music, somehow kind of fell into playing bluegrass as well, and we do it and we take it pretty seriously. So if people go on YouTube, you'll certainly find a lot of videos, either if you search for Micah Hanks or for Nitro Grass. But it's not just, to do it because it's something that's popular here or just to make money. I mean, I genuinely enjoy it. I went through a breakup back when I was about 20 or 21 years old, and just found a copy of Tony Rice's album Manzanita lying around, and I just put that on just for something to listen to while I was kind of going through this, this breakup. And I heard that guitar, and it changed my life, really did. And I played, electric music for years, and at that point I thought I need a Martin acoustic, and I bought one. And the great thing is although I've only met Tony fleetingly on a couple of occasions, I've gotten to know his wife, once again through social media, very well over the years, and she and I will correspond. We've discussed everything from Bigfoot to spirits. She's a wonderful artist, and from time to time she shows Nitro Grass videos to Tony also. So it's just really kind of a cool and cosmic relationship that I've come to have with music. Just to be brief, because I don't want to spend all night talking about that, but another quick instance, there was a song I wrote that was inspired by the famous disappearance of the pilot Frederick Valentich back in 1978. He had seen a great big green lit object flying above his plane moments before he disappeared. It's well known in UFO circles, but I wrote a song about this, and lo and behold, on my podcast, I talked about the story, and a listener contacted me and said, I'm friends with Freddie's girlfriend at the time he disappeared, Rhonda Rushton, and she heard about your show and would love to talk to you, and we made arrangements. We became very good friends. We stay in touch. We're still in touch to this day, and I hope to visit her sometime. But we got to talk on Skype, and it was late at night on my end, and I had a glass of brandy. It was early in the morning in Australia where she was. She and Joe, her husband, were having coffee, and she mentioned to me she'd heard the song, which is on YouTube. It's called Never Without You, and she said it's a lovely song. And imagine that experience where this song you wrote about something that was really moving to you. One of the people who was directly involved, the girlfriend of the guy who went missing, was never found. The last thing he saw, last thing he said, in fact, and was heard saying to air traffic control, the object's directly above me, it's hovering, and it's not an aircraft. And she says, it's a beautiful song, and God, all I could say was, it's yours. It's yours. It's all yours. And so, yeah, I've got a very strangely cosmic connection with music, to say the least.
Well, it is impressive. I know that the trend is, and I'm going to assume that you would fit into the millennial category of generation, is the move from hard rock and not saying that the hard rock and electronic, which is a lot of the field that I'm in, is going away, but there's a trend with your generation that going with more acoustic, more natural music, nothing
back
that's
to basics.
Back
maybe?
to the basics, basically. Yes, is what I'm trying to convey, and it is great to see that kind of music, because when I was a kid, I remember back in the 70s sitting in the backyard with my grandfather and my father, who played guitar, and had his friends over, and they would jam into the wee hours of the morning of just playing just different acoustic songs, and it is a wonderful thing to go from the doom, 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 sound that I'm so used to, and then go to listening to that and remembering that. It's just a big shift of gears, if you will.
Well, it certainly is, and I think it's kind of funny that young people are so attracted to acoustic music, because it just, once again, kind of underscores the cyclical nature of pop culture themes and things like that. The very same things that seemed to have made, well, I don't know, maybe not the exact same things, but similar nuances and similar cultural themes and movements and ideas that brought to the forefront of American culture during the 1960s. Artists like Bob Dylan and later Leonard Cohen. We're seeing a resurgence in that today, but it's not so much that it's coming back as it is. It just, again, shows that things kind of cycle. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of beautiful when you begin to recognize the ebb and flow of thought, ideas, art, culture, and things like this, because anything that, to quote, Springsteen, some things, what is it? Sometimes things that die someday come back. I'm probably mangling that, but it was from Atlantic City. So, a song which I'm still obviously learning the lyrics to.
Well, Micah, I want to shift gears. We went through the music route, and now I want to go out into the universe. Basically, I want to get your thoughts on Are we living in I guess, a holographic universe? Is it
simulation?
A simulation that we're experiencing? I've read several articles, and I'm currently building a show towards later this year to cover this topic. But I would really like to get your angle on what your thoughts are on the subject matter.
Well, it's a deep and complex notion. The modern physical universe, as we observe, and as physicists provide commentary on, it's becoming more and more astonishing with every day. We learn new things about the formation of universes, the relationship that the formation of not just universes, but within a universe we have galaxies and solar systems, and the notion that a galaxy is really essentially, the formation of a galaxy is concomitant with the presence of a black hole. And we're learning more and more that, as Stephen Hawking said many decades ago, black holes ain't so black, and what the unique interrelationship between these things, the subtle balance, the cosmic dance that occurs between celestial objects, those both seen and unseen. And as we're understanding and learning more about the universe around us, and we are coming to terms with the great reality far beyond that which is perceptible, an old philosophical idea is now kind of seeing its own renaissance among modern physicists, and that is the idea that in an ever-expanding infinite universe, there are infinite possibilities in terms of what may exist and what kinds of things there are. And hence we have great minds of our day like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Elon Musk, who are becoming very open to some interesting ideas. Now, of course, Elon Musk had said just today, on the heels of this mysterious SpaceX explosion, that he is, quote, not ruled out some sort of an object accidentally taking down the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Of course, many people infer that, well, that means it was a UFO. So is Elon Musk open to the idea of UFOs and the idea that there are indeed extraterrestrial occupants of said unidentified aircraft? Well, he hasn't explicitly stated that, nor has Neil deGrasse Tyson. If anything, I know that the latter has been fairly dismissive of the idea of unidentified flying objects, but I wish that our modern thinkers wouldn't be. And the reason is because I don't know that anything about UFO necessarily explicitly has to be taken to mean aliens.
Alien, yeah. It's just not, it's an object we can't identify. We don't need to, you can't assume where it's from.
We can't just assume that it's little green men operating something like this. It's unidentified, and I guess over time, the term UFO has gotten a bad rap in the sense of we automatically assume
it's come to mean synonymous with alien or life.
Well, it's certainly become stigmatized and stereotyped, and so therefore the serious, legitimate study of unexplained aerial phenomena, or UAP, people ask me these days, why do you use that term? Are you a UFO apologist?
It's neutral.
Well, it is more neutral, and unfortunately, the bias is exerted as a result of the way that terminology is used over time. So, but not to go down the UFO rabbit hole too much, the point is that you see that those same biases are exerted very often by our greatest minds and our most brilliant thinkers. But I'll also point out that while maybe Musk is a bit more of a generalist, and he has to be in terms of his leaning toward the future and the technologies that will get us eventually where we hope to go, which many would say is off-planet. There are any number of other goals, destinations, the great, the final frontier, to evoke Star Trek. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, on the other hand, it's not to say that he is limited in his thought, but he is certainly a specialist. And what's funny is he's been rather famously, he and also fellow physicist and Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge, Professor Stephen Hawking, they've both been very down on philosophy, and yet the idea of anything being possible in an ever-expanding infinite universe has been long held by philosophers. Now some of our physicists are also warming up to the idea. So what does that mean? Well, as Musk and as Tyson have posited, well, really, I think more accepted based on the ideas of others, which include philosopher Nick Bostrom and many others who have speculated about this over the years, there is a mathematical likelihood, not a certainty, but there is at very least a probable likelihood that we may exist in the simulation of a intelligence that is existed much longer than we have. The idea of ancient aliens, although popular on History Channel, and I don't really endorse that idea myself, but that idea that Earth may have been visited long, long ago, you've got to keep in mind, in the 13.5 billion years that our universe has existed, and the 65 million years or so in terms of geological time, that Earth could have had visitation prior to the arrival of humans. Sure, it's far more likely, although that doesn't prove that we've been visited, it's far more likely nonetheless that in the past, intelligent life did make it here. Or if they didn't come on their own accord, biological aliens traveling, traversing space and time, biological probes, or perhaps even artificial probes may have been sent. Now, I delineate between the two. There's a distinction to be made. One could be that there are biological organisms that could effectively replicate themselves or improve upon themselves utilizing technology, in which case a person could become the probe that actually is sent out to explore. Hence, we have space travelers. Alternatively, the probe could be an individual who sends a machine further out, perhaps minuscule in size, and capable of spreading throughout all the known universe. So there could have been, for all we know, molecular-sized alien probes that were entirely manufactured, but which populate all of space, and some or many of which still exist, and they could have come to Earth long ago. Who knows? There are any number of different possibilities. What about this one? If and when time travel were to ever actually be achieved, because it's recognized by physicists that it is indeed a generic element in keeping with the laws of general relativity. It seems extremely hard to achieve, but we know that in theory time travel could actually occur. What if certain strange phenomena that we perceive could be long and really since time immemorial in terms of geological time here on Earth, long gone ancient alien civilizations who were highly advanced many millions of years ago, who did get to that point of technological proficiency, and despite their own imminent demise, they're capable of traveling through time. I mean, there's so many different possibilities, and yes, physicists are opening up to everything that I've stated here, and despite its apparent sounding like science fiction, there certainly is a certain factual element to it. Yes, I'm just speculating and tossing out ideas, but we have to accept that if we're talking about laws of probability and we live in a truly infinite expanding universe, at least some of what we've discussed here and put on the table may be a reality. So what are we dealing with? Is it indeed a stranger universe than what we recognize? How much of it is indeed truly physical? And in terms of the idea of simulations, all of the above could exist with or without the physical substructure necessary.
If you put the idea of a multiverse where every reality is being played out, one of those realities could be a simulation.
One could be a simulation, or we could be one operating system functioning on on the same partition as another within a hard drive. There are any number of different things, and of course, the Matrix films really, I think, are what got me thinking about this. But again, I like to point out that these are ideas that have been long held.
Oh, sure.
By more forward-thinking physicists and also by many philosophers, and this isn't a new concept, but it is interesting that now it's really becoming something that our leading thinkers today are saying, hey, if it is reality and not merely science fiction, what and how can we learn from it?
Did you see that episode of The Next Generation where Data and Geordi are going to play Sherlock Holmes in the holodeck, and Moriarty becomes aware that he's a hologram and takes over the computer and holds everything hostage and says, I demand you find a way to make me, solid so I can get out there and explore the universe. And there was no way for them to do it, so they created a fake simulation inside of a cube with lots of memory to simulate him, and they fooled him to think it was reality, but he was never going to know.
I'm not.
That blows my mind.
But that's a brilliant example, though, of again where science fiction informs certain scientific thought. When we think about, at least eventual or at least possible eventualities, I think that before perhaps we have intelligent robots or androids or anything, C-3PO and R2-D2 stumbling around. I think that in likelihood what we will have is we will have machine intelligence that inhabits a form that is far less formidable than a human body, which in a strange way might also make it far more formidable. I mean, think about this, for instance. Benjamin Goertzel, Ph.D., he's one of the leading AI researchers these days, and I've interviewed him twice and corresponded with him over the years. He and a number of other artificial intelligence researchers that I've had long correspondences with, many speculate about really how artificial intelligence will come to fruition. and whether it will come about in the way that many of us expect. Now, I think that Ben, although he's written about the idea about a sentient kind of consciousness emerging from within the internet, I think he's more prone to believe that indeed we will create artificial intelligence, that the eventual creation will be something that is intentional, and it will come about by virtue of human hands and the direction of human thought. But there are many thinkers, and Goertzel has at least broached the subject before, that say that indeed not only could something like the internet at some point begin to kind of develop a consciousness, but in some ways actually in many ways it already functions like a human brain. I don't think that humans, I mean, we're certainly original in our thought, but everything that we build, it's almost kind of like a variant on the melody that was hummed in the Garden of Eden. The old analogy that whatever Adam and Eve are humming in the Garden of Eden, everybody's still humming that same tune. It's just a variant on that. Well, by the same token, our great technologies, our computers, the machines around us, they are built in order to replicate tasks which humans once had to carry out. And the more that we create, the more that we outsource what once were human tasks to intelligent machines. So the machines are already intelligent, but perhaps not conscious like we are.
Yeah.
What will be the next step that will lead to that? Could the internet become sentient or conscious?
That's actually on my list to ask you under the technology, the future of AI. My only issue with that is because artificial intelligence has to learn to get that way, they have to learn from us. Well, we as humans are flawed. Look at Microsoft's attempt at it. They put an AI on Twitter, and it learned from other people tweeting, not the best of the best. These people weren't, probably PhDs and people like yourself. And it was exactly how YouTube comments degenerate into, and it was calling people Nazis and soliciting sex. And I'm like, well, that's what people do. So I guess you put AI in the right hands with the right programmers, it could be, but will it be corrupted by our everyday behavior?
Mm-hmm. Somehow I think that there's a brilliant thought experiment that could be born out of this. And I mean that very, very sincerely, because the question you ask causes me to think. And in truth, I mean, I can give you some commentary, but I think I'll have to
research.
I'll have to think more deeply about this in the future. But my immediate answer would be that my hope would be, based on the way that we see machines learning, which is based on human interactions via digital means that are available today, it seems to suggest that the things that are less desirable among civilization are what machines tend to learn, because unfortunately the majority of human interactions are based on those things.
Yes, they're so prevalent.
It is, and that prevalence can't be denied. We see it in politics. And it's nothing new. It's something that's been riddled throughout our history. I mean, think the great minds, the people who actually innovate and who push us forward, and who carry forth with new thought, new ideas, and new inventions, and all kinds of ways that better our existence, are the distinct minority. Then there's the much greater element within the populace worldwide, which they may be getting by, but they aren't doing very much in terms of a kind of global mindfulness to move us forward. Now, again, I am an optimist, and so I think that every individual person is important. Even those people who act and carry their lives out in deplorable ways, they have the potential for good, and they have the potential to do better. And you don't have to be a genius to be able to move, civilization as a whole forward. But when you see the way that the majority of people have no interest in really seeing whether or not civilization progresses, or whether or not we can prevent catastrophes here on our planet. Some of them perhaps anthropogenic in nature, caused by humankind. They have no interest. All they hope they can do is they can get money, they can get food, and they can get the creature comforts that will make day to day a little better. And that said, if machines learn from that, that's a concerning thing. So there's a part of me that hopes that when artificial intelligence comes about, which I don't think it's a matter of if, it is indeed a when at this point, I do hope that they will be the result of projects that are steered by mindful individuals who are hoping that the intelligence that results learns from the intelligence which created them. But the problem is what will happen when we have an intelligence that is indeed potentially superior to our own? Will it see what we do and how we act and how we relate to one another, and just find it disgusting. And then will it be Daleks must exterminate? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I hope not. I hope not.
Speaking of exterminate, we're at the top of the hour, and we must exterminate our break. I mean, not in a bad sense, but in a good sense. And here I go babbling again. But anyway, you are listening to SpaceboyUniverse.com, and we have Micah Hanks on, and we'll be right back after this message.
I just want to refer. What?
Mark your calendars. The Houston Mini Maker Faire will be at the George R. Brown Convention Center for a 2-day event on November 12th and 13th. Come join them and be a part of their growth story as they boost invention and creativity through the greater Houston area by developing a world-class exhibition. Stay tuned to the official Houston Mini Maker Faire website at www.houstonmakerfaire.com to hear more insights about content, schedule, tickets, and maker exhibitor registration.
Hello Space Cadets. It is announcer Savannah. I want to tell you that as a dedicated member of the SBU team, you always want to look your best. Do it in a Spaceboy Universe t-shirt. Get yours at spaceboyuniverse.com by clicking the banner on the website.
This is author Gordon Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe. Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mama Nim I said hi.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt Pit. Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot. You're terminated. Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Explore the universe, SpaceboyUniverse.com. Spaceboy. And Surlana. Spaceboy, and Surlana. Spaceboy, and Surlana. Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana on SpaceboyUniverse.com.
Hey, Surlana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe.
SpaceboyUniverse.com. Techno, dance, atmospheric moods? Yes, my friends. My latest release, Digital, has something for everyone. Even makes a great gift for Grandma. Buy your digital download at SpaceboyMusic.com.
Greetings, Space Cadets! Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Surlanus Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
Greetings everyone. You can catch Spaceboy Universe on every Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. However, we know that you might not be able to catch the live show. That is why we have many places to listen to it on demand, like iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube and Spreaker. So take the universe with you wherever you go.
To call in, dial area code 713-7015-214. You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
You are indeed listening to Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana, and we always encourage you to explore the universe with us every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, of course, you know, all the Space Cadets love to hang out, and they're all in the chat room. And how can you get there? I'll tell you right now. Basically, go to spaceboyuniverse.com, and at the top of the website, you'll see the player. And inside the player, you'll see the little chat bubble. It's doing its little jig, dancing and grooving and everything. Click on that bubble. That'll get you in with all the cool kids. Right, Surlana?
Yes, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah, so,
tonight.
And tonight we have on Micah Hanks. And I'm sure that he is wrangling back to his microphone very shortly. There he is.
He's there.
he went out into the universe and got a couple of
simulated beverage.
Simulated beverage, you know, a little H2O. I've heard you put it a different way. How do you put it, Micah?
Let's see here. Is it dihydrogen oxide, probably?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Or interestingly, you can also do dihydrogen dioxide. A number of unique combinations there. So I'm scoping out the Spaceboy Universe website right now, which is really awesome. I'm trying to find my way to the chat room. Hopefully, if I can find my way through space and time, I can find a chat room, yeah?
Well, it's a little talk bubble in the player.
Yeah.
It kind of shakes back and forth. You just click that, and you can log in with Facebook if you want to, or you may have to create a login if you don't want to do that.
But I'm sure all the Space Cadets would love to see you in there and say howdy to you. So, you know, Surlana, was there something you wanted to add? I know, you know, these breaks creep up, and it's like it's...
Well, we've covered music, and he did some French science. I guess we covered some history, and we definitely did technology. So pop culture is sort of all over the place, and I wanted you to ask him something that really gets people going.
Well, now we've reached the Doctor Who moment.
Let me get my fingernail file, because I'm going to kind of mentally check out.
Okay, so I'm going to randomly go down a few things and ask you, one, who's your doctor?
Who's your daddy?
Yeah, basically, who's your daddy? Who's your doctor?
Well, it's difficult to say. There are so many that I enjoy. I think it's kind of a tie for me between Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor. He's kind of a perennial favorite, and in truth, I think Peter Capaldi, our current Doctor, he has so impressed me. And I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, you know, this new Who is just soap operas." I'm just a stickler for the old shows. I've watched every one of the Doctors. I haven't watched every one of the episodes. There's so many, and some of them lost, as we know. But I have followed the show, and in fact, I signed up to Netflix after people kept making that comparison. Oh, you remind me of the Doctor. Oh, you like scarves. Oh, you dress so nice. You know, you're kind of like Doctor Who. I didn't know anything about it, but people kept saying that to me, and so I signed up to Netflix so that I could watch the show. And I didn't start with the new shows at all. I went back and I watched every
old school.
episode of. Yeah, I went to the classic Doctor Who, and I'll tell you, one of my absolute favorite Doctors was Patrick Troughton's second Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He had such a unique vibe about him. You know, we had William Hartnell, the first Doctor, and as his relations with BBC had begun to kind of, spoil somewhat, and he was also getting older.
Right.
It wasn't something that they had planned. They ended up writing in the whole regeneration motif so that they could hand that lead role to another actor. So Troughton comes in, and it was famously said that Hartnell had said, well, there's no one else in the world, or in all of Britain at least, who could play this role better than Patrick Troughton. And he was such a remarkable Doctor because he was this kind of scatterbrained, kind of a worrywart, you know, oh no, Jamie, oh no, you know, and not exactly your typical swashbuckling, very dashing hero type. But there was this interesting kind of a meditative quality to him, a musical quality. He would whip out a recorder from time to time and play on. And I really loved the second Doctor. There's something I could tell you about each one, every actor who's played that role that I love. But what I think I love about Peter Capaldi so much is that of those classic Doctors, he is, I think, all of them. And I'll give, doing proper to Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant and Matt Smith as well. But of all the new actors to take the role since the return, Capaldi, I think, is the one who really, truly captures that essence, but he also brings something that no other Doctor has quite had. Although Sylvester McCoy, the Seventh Doctor, which Lord of the Rings fans will recognize from the Hobbit films as Radagast the Brown, the crazy wizard with the bird droppings in his hair. Sylvester McCoy, he had a bit of a manipulative kind of a game player, kind of a character to him, and there was a certain darkness to that, but no one's brought that darkness to the role believably and also in a way that is still lovable like Peter Capaldi. He is truly remarkable, and that's why I think it's easy to say that, oh, well, whoever's on TV right now is my favorite, but I have to look at him in the context of all of the Doctors and all of them who have played the role, and I think he absolutely knocks it out of the ballpark. And I hope sincerely that he will maintain that role for as long as he is comfortable and as long as BBC will have him, because he is the one who has that multi-layered element that is deeper than merely what that show presents in the fun adventures. There's, again, a deeper archetypal, again, what we would call in Jungian psychology, the Senex, the wise old man.
Mm-hmm.
All of those qualities are so well represented in that show, but Capaldi, to me, embodies that like no other actor has, and he's just remarkable. I mean, and he is as good as the first Doctor. He really is. He's as good as Hartnell or Patrick Troughton in my mind. I think he's as good as some of those early actors who played the role.
I believe that it's true as far as what they've said in the program, that he is the Doctor at that time that is needed. And so as far as Capaldi is concerned, I think he's great. I've enjoyed his performance. It's been different because when I look at myself, as far as my first Doctor was Tom Baker, and enjoyed him very much, and he kind of set the standard for me. And then, of course, when David Tennant took the role, I enjoyed his kind of spastic approach to the Doctor and was very enjoyable. But which this all kind of leads into, the Doctor regenerates. So there's been this big thing out in, I guess, out on the net that has really kind of put everybody together against each other. And that is, should the Doctor regenerate into a woman?
Yeah.
And here we go. What are you
about to split the room in half?
Well, I want to say, and I'm very comfortable saying, I consider myself a feminist. I do, in the sense that I don't think it's so much about we need more attention for this group or that group. I mean, we need equality, and that's what I think everyone wants. Just, despite your gender or your sexual preference or your actual sexual identity, whatever your heritage is, wherever you are from in the world. I will say this, and I know that some people may disagree. I do find it a bit concerning, though, that rather than creating strong roles in sci-fi and whatnot, and other various genres, strong roles for different characters, that we have to rewrite certain roles so that, for instance, a woman can play the Doctor. Now, of course, we already know that the Time Lords in the series can regenerate, and they are not gender specific. Right now, the famous villain of the Doctor, Missy, a.k.a. the Master, is a woman.
And she's great, by the way.
She's really
yes.
good. And so my answer is, if the right woman comes into the role, absolutely. And I'll tell you here in a moment, because I already have her in mind. I know who the perfect woman to play the Doctor is. I've already figured it out. I know she would not just knock it out of the ballpark. She might be on par with Capaldi and some of the great Doctors of the past several decades. But while I even have my own preference for what woman should play that role, what worries me is that we have a great actor. I hope in some way space-time brings this back around to not only Stephen Moffat or maybe Chris Chibnall, who's taking over writing for the next season after this one, and Peter Capaldi himself, because we have such a truly fine artist. He's not just an actor. Peter Capaldi is such a fine artist playing this.
He was in a punk band with Craig Ferguson as the drummer.
Yeah, that's right. And Capaldi, I believe, sang and played guitar.
Mm-hmm.
He has narrated presentations on History Channel and other networks that have dealt with everything from the art and culture of Scotland, his native country, to Leonardo da Vinci and his works. This man is a true artist. He's not just an actor. And if, in the name of social justice and this modern kind of political correctness, if we allow someone who truly brings so much to this role to be butted out just so that we can get someone who can play the role who is of, again, whatever. Who knows? I mean, if we get an alien in there to play it. That to me is a little concerning. I think that we should never overlook what we have and how good it is. But yes, of course, as I think that the showrunners and Peter Capaldi himself and other actors on the program have stated, yes, I think it would be fine. And of course, certainly the Whovian universe would allow for a female to play that role. Again, we need an actress who is as good as Capaldi is and has been. He's been truly good to it, because that role is not just, okay, here's who's playing the part. You become a steward to, again, something that's not just the longest-running sci-fi drama in history. To me, there's an archetypal meaning to this. The wise old man, that Senex that Jung talked about, which could be a wise old woman just as well. Whatever it is, there is a certain personality that has to be very effectively and convincingly conveyed. And so there's one actress who, if and when that comes along, I don't know if she'd take the role, but my God, she would be remarkable. And anybody want to guess before I name the actress who I think, if and when the eventuality comes that a woman plays the role, who it should be?
I know I'm going to butcher her last name. I'm thinking that it would be Helen
Mirren?
Mirren? Yes, Mirren would make an excellent doctor.
Helen Mirren, she would be quite good. She, a couple of funny things. Her appearance on Stephen Colbert's program, where she walked out very timid and just walks up and just kisses him, just plants one on him. It was hilarious. Also, for the film fans out there, rather disturbing and yet funny film. Let's see here. The Thief, the Cook, the Thief, his wife, and her lover. That film. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally disturbing on so many levels. But Mirren, again, just such a great actress. She would be fine, I think, but she's not who I'm thinking. There's one woman who I think is bold, brave, and really could absorb the character well enough to actually put it back out into the Whovian universe in a convincing way, and that is, drum roll please, Ava Grain.
Ava Grain.
Never heard of that woman.
I don't think I've heard of her.
Ava Grain, of course, played Vesper Lind in Casino Royale in the new James Bond film.
Yes.
But she plays Vanessa, okay, on Penny Dreadful. Mm-hmm. And that role, her in the Victorian kind of element, there's this one side spiritualist, one side Sherlock Holmes, and yes, there's a little touch of Missy, but in a much more honestly good kind of, she's rooted in good despite being surrounded by evil. And it was that role that made me think, my God, I'd always respected her. I mean, her appearances in any number of roles, many of them very bold and daring and demanding. But if an actress like Ava Grain were to play the Doctor, she would absolutely kill it. So, again, I'm all for a female Doctor, and if we had an actress like Ava Grain who would agree to do that, she would be incredible. But what I want, whether it's, again, it doesn't matter who it is, what color they are, what their gender is, we need an actor who can become a faithful steward to what that role is. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing, not whether or not it's a man or a woman, or whatever.
They can bring a little bit of themselves to it, but they have to be mindful of the history of the whole character and the whole character's personality and what that character has been through.
And every doctor has...
he has that tragic background, right? You told me?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Well, absolutely. And again, I know that there are some people out there in this age of perpetual offense, as I like to call it. Oh, he's a Southerner. Micah Hanks is a Southerner, and he just said, how great it would be to have... They'll find a way. There are people who have nothing better to do with their time than to twist somebody's words and try and make it out to say that, well, he's not really consciously or mindful of the situation, of how important it is, how the necessity to have a woman play that role in this age that we have right now. Look, I understand the whole social justice issue probably better than most. I do a news and current events politics podcast that addresses these kind of things. But again, I think that we have to be careful, because if indeed our social activism trumps the true art heritage, the meaning, and frankly, the to an extent sanctity of the artistic presentation of a program or a character or a motif or whatever, it can become misguided. And I think that we just always have to be mindful of how we present what we do, what we produce, and make sure that our hearts aren't going ahead of our minds in a situation that could otherwise benefit if it were really done right. And with, again, I think the proper hesitance, the proper measure, and the proper concern. But yeah, absolutely. And if Ava Grain is listening, by the way, you'd be an amazing doctor.
Yeah, I'm sure she's listening.
I see binge watching on my future, so I'm going to have to watch Penny Dreadful. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on my list of things to binge.
It's just remarkable. You guys will love it. And she is one of the most talented actresses that you'll ever see. She is just remarkable.
Have you watched Mr. Robot?
No, I haven't watched that, no.
Oh, boy. I would love to get your take on that. But you're going to have to devote some time.
Well, if you can wait 15 seconds, I'll jump in the TARDIS. I'll travel in the future, and I'll come back and we can talk about it after I've watched it.
Because I used to think I was a reasonably intelligent person, and I can sit down, watch that, binge watch it back to back, not miss a beat, paying attention, and I feel like a complete idiot. So for that reason, I recommend it. That way, maybe you could decipher it for me. And so that's your homework. Now, I know you have done a broadcast on Stranger Things. And we just recently finished watching that. And
what did you think?
I wonder if you could go back to the 80s and quietly drop that into a movie theater or a TV. Would anybody notice? I think it was that well done.
I think they would notice, and that's the one problem I have with the show, though.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do that, and the reason why is because they utilized CGI.
That's true. It was a combination of CGI and practical for the monster.
And then, of course, you have to ask the question, if they dropped it in with all the movies that were relevant at that time period, would they say, oh, this is just a rip-off of this, or this is a rip-off of that? You don't have that time between.
This feels more like a love letter to everything we watched in the 80s, the TV and movies. That's what I liked about it.
Well, I think Stranger Things is that. It is an answer to the things that we miss about 80s cinema and also the novels. What's funny is so many people who were providing commentary on Stranger Things were just enamored with the typography. The opening sequence.
Binguat, that's the man's name who created that font.
What was his name?
It's Bing. I may be saying this wrong, sorry, but I'm, because I do a little graphic design on the side, so I'm a font nerd. It's Binguat.
Isn't it funny, though, how many people are enamored with the typography of
Because it's on
Things?
Stephen King's novels.
Yeah. And see, that's one thing.
And even Stephen King is going gaga over it.
What's funny, though, is that the actual opening sequence, and what I'm talking about is the movement of the letters. It's somewhat, I've seen a lot of comparisons. I can't seem to name the show that it reminds me of the most. Some have said V, some have said it reminded them a little bit of the opening sequence to The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken.
Yes.
Some have made, there have been a lot of comparisons made. It seems like there's something I'm not remembering, something I'm sure someone else, some blogger out there somewhere must have already picked up on it and knows exactly what we're talking about. But whatever the case, it was so well done in Stranger Things. It was so well done. And, that show is remarkable, which the thing is you have to remember why people use CGI these days. It's because now, and actually since its inception, it is more affordable and it creates really realistic effect on a budget. But the best films that employ CGI are the ones who have used less of it. Because to me, I think CGI, as good as it can look at times, and there have been a few films, like for instance, I remember when Ang Lee's film, his rendition of the Hulk came out. Some of the CGI in that was so good. They did such a good job, and everybody really hated that film, but I was thinking, wow, this is some of the best looking CGI I've seen. It might be better than the more current renditions of Marvel films that feature the Hulk. But that said, one of the best films to feature CGI, of course, was Jurassic Park, the original, back, what was it, 1930 or
1938?
Yeah. I'm sorry, that was King Kong in 1993. And the reason why it worked so well is because they had the actual animatronic dinosaurs, but they would fill in the gaps when necessary with CGI, and they made it so convincing. Because rather than being something that was full frontal in your face all the time, it was something that allows suspension of disbelief to be maintained by filling in the gaps through proper editing and through, frankly, just good cinematography. There is this period in film history that I love, really from about the late 1970s into the early 90s, that golden age where CGI hadn't quite come about yet, and everything that had to be done organically, but there was enough of a budget and there was enough special effects wizardry that made these incredible films like the Fly, Jeff Goldblum. We had The Thing, John Carpenter.
Oh, yeah. That freaked me out.
That one, really, actually, if we're going to talk about Kurt Russell films, by the way, Big Trouble in Little China, all-time favorite. No CGI, but these films, I mean, they really just hit the nail on the head.
It's the storytelling seems different now from back then. It seems like they really knew how to tell a story in the 70s and definitely in the 80s.
And they didn't have the CGI to rely on,
right.
And hence they had to rely on a better telling of a tale to make the entire thing legitimate. And so,
case in point, Star Wars.
Yes. Well, see, no, the best example in the Star Wars universe is the first 3 films versus the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now we seem to be back on track thanks to J.J. Abrams and, of course, the others who are going to be taking up the helm with the additional 2 films. Interesting to see where that goes. Even though there is CGI, they've definitely gotten back to the roots with real sets, real actors, a good bit of rubber and face masks and silly stuff. You know, boy, it's starting to sound kind of like a bondage film or something here. But you see what I'm saying, though. Yeah. I mean, that organic component is necessary in order to maintain suspension of disbelief. I studied film in college. I'm like you guys and anybody else listening probably. I mean, I'm just as much a film nerd, and I know what works and what doesn't, and that's my only gripe about an otherwise perfect series, Stranger Things. I wish there'd been less CGI, but I also realized they were on a budget, and that's in likelihood why they used it when and where they did.
Because it had been turned down so many times.
Yeah, they shopped it around to like 15 different people, and it was 16th was a charm, I believe. And
that happened to Breaking Bad as
well.
well.
Netflix said, sure, we'll do it. Yeah, so, and everybody on this program knows that I have this big love fest with Netflix, so,
Yeah.
Well, Netflix consistently produces better than average programming. I mean, look at, for instance, Daredevil and Jessica Jones.
Mm-hmm.
The Netflix original series are really good. In addition to being a home for remarkable programming like Terry, I'm sorry, I almost said Terry Gilliam. I was thinking, what's his name? Vince Gilligan.
Yes.
Vince Gilliam.
Sorry, yes, you were talking about his new perspective show about the Jonestown Massacre,
yeah.
which will be interesting because as well as he did on Breaking Bad, and of course much, I have to say, goes to Bryan Cranston also with his portrayal of the enigmatic Walter White. That whole program is just incredible. My one gripe with Netflix, while we're griping, okay, maybe this is more a gripe to have with BBC though. Doctor Who no longer on Netflix, really?
Right.
Oh, they took it off?
Bro.
Well, yeah, it was. I think they were trying to bluff them, but they got their bluff called on them. So
I understand that the BBC is also hoping to do their own streaming service, which
yes,
I guess I'm going to have to sign up.
I want the BBC America that was on in the early 2000s. That's what I want back.
Didn't they have like what was it? Father Ted and
well, I have all those DVDs plus two copies of Fawlty Towers.
She got me hooked into Father Ted. I just love that. And then the IT crowd came around, and that.
Well, that's written by the same guy.
Same guy, right?
Of course, Black Books is written by the same guy. Black Books, another strange but wonderful little British comedy. Well, actually, Irish British comedy.
It's
so is Father Ted.
They're so good. They're also, and see, that's the thing is, I've got so many friends in America, especially, who they're like, okay, so after all of this stuff of everybody calling you the doctor and your whole fascination, Micah, with long coats and screwdrivers and stuff, we tried watching Doctor Who. I just don't get it. I tried, but I just don't get it. And I'm like, well, you got to watch more than one episode.
Ain't that the truth?
Same with Star Trek.
When we say, because it doesn't get good until the third season, really.
Of any of them.
Of any of them, because they're trying to find their own.
Of any of them, yes, exactly.
Well, some of them didn't go past season 3.
But, I mean, like, for example...
Yes, Vicar of Dibley. Sorry, Bob just mentioned that.
I was going to say...
I love that one, too.
Enterprise was, almost at that point of, okay, it's going to be great now.
Oh, he's going on a tangent, sorry.
And then all of a sudden they decide, no, we're going to cancel it. So, but anyway, if you're going to rip this Band-Aid off of me about cancellation of shows, it's just going to,
No, to me, the holy grail, and this doesn't exist, but the holy grail for me personally to get on DVD or some kind of media would be to get the two Ronnies. There's probably nobody knows what I'm talking about except probably my sister and my friend Leanne and Chad.
And your husband, because he hears it all the time.
Go, Google it. You'll see they've both passed on, unfortunately. But the guy who can speak the gibberish so well, it's just classic. More great British comedy from the 70s right there. It came on with Benny Hill, all that good stuff. So,
well, let's pause it right there, and because it's break time. And so let me go ahead and get the music going. You're listening to SpaceboyUniverse.com. And tonight's guest is Micah Hanks. And when we come back, we'll talk more with Micah Hanks. So don't touch that dial.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Indeed, I'm Spaceboy, and Surlana is over there.
Yeah. I'm here too.
Oh, I love you, dear. And we're talking with Micah Hanks, and it's been a great evening so far. And, Surlana, you were talking about Mr. Robot. I'd be curious to hear what Micah has to talk about the dark web.
Yeah, aspect of it. Yeah, don't want to give away too much in case he does want to. I told him it's on Amazon, and that's his homework, and he can do the first season right now, and the second season is just still going on. It's probably halfway or most over, so we're watching it the day after. Mm-hmm. So I want him to do. Maybe he can do it on his podcast, so I can listen and help me decipher it.
You're
what's
asking
going on.
to take a request of
topic request.
I'm here all night. I'll take requests. Oh, and by the way, since we're talking about robots and dark web and Mr. Robot and all this kind of stuff, we should really say and pay our due and proper to the robots out there in the listening audience right now.
Hello, rubbish robots from the dawn of time.
Thank you for the gratuitous information. Anyway.
Do you have?
I'm rolling my Scottish R's,
Yeah, somebody said in chat the current Doctor Who is difficult to understand. I said he's Scottish. That's why.
Or is it, what is it like they say? He's from the north.
He's from the north. We are from France.
Look at all your wonderful fans out there. Beverly, who I know, and K28.
K28.
But I digress. Look at this. Look at this Micah Hanksian trope right here. Mr. Cruz, of course. Jeannie, Robert.
That's my sister. I got 3 people in here that belong to me.
Wow, goodness gracious. And Casper, of course, my buddy over in the next state over. And, gosh, Gene. So many fine folks.
Dino, the Godfather.
So, Micah, I know your primary area that you kind of hang around with, I guess the group of people, is in that fringe subject matter. And I guess what I'd like to know is, do you have any favorite stories that you've come across over the years, being a part of the group? Not necessarily from, the people, but the stories that, for my favorite is the Hopkinsville, Kentucky incident.
Sure.
Where that group of the family member that were attacked by aliens. I've always enjoyed it. In fact, I remember reading that as a kid because, back in the 70s,
the recreation of it.
The books, they would have scholastic books would come out, and they would bring all these books. And I was buying the Bigfoot books, anything that get into paranormal. And that story came up, and I was just kind of curious to pick your brain. What are some of your stories that you've found fascinating over the years and come across?
Well, I've got a lot of favorites, but what's really eerie for me is that I think we all begin as fans, and we start off being interested, and the deeper you go down the proverbial rabbit hole, the more you find that you can get so close to a case that sometimes you become a part of it. Like, for instance, I mentioned earlier in the interview although I dread calling this an interview, it's more like just 3 friends catching up and chatting with a bunch of people listening in, and that's what I love about that's good radio, is when people just are having a conversation. And when my interest in a particular UFO case became an ongoing conversation like that with one of the participants, that's when stuff started really getting weird for me. But I consider myself blessed for that, and that was, of course, the Frederick Valentich disappearance. Mm-hmm. His girlfriend at the time, who was 16 years old, Freddie was only 18. You got to keep in mind, the skeptics who tried to debunk that case, they would say, oh, Freddie had a girlfriend on another island, he was smuggling drugs, doing all this kind of stuff. Yes, that was Philip J. Klass, arch UFO debunker. That guy, he was full of it, just to put it mildly. I have plenty of respect for people who are skeptical, but when you have to engage in listener, I'm thinking podcast again, witness assassination, character assassination of the witnesses, as he did, you can't just say that he was wrong about what he saw and sadly, in likelihood, died as a result of that. You have to engage in all this speculation about what he might have been up to or what he could have been doing, what was his real modus operandi. And the more hardened skeptics over the years have done that not only with Frederick Valentich, but they've done this with Betty Cash and Vicki Landrum. In 1980, the famous incident that occurred down there in Dayton, Texas, the Rendlesham UFO case that took place within 24 hours in Suffolk, England. Mm-hmm. it's the witnesses aren't just mistaken in what they saw. They were up to no good. They were trying to profit off of this. They were hucksters, phonies, frauds, okay? And it's just disgusting to me when I see skeptics go down that route and not say, well, let's just deduce what may have actually happened. No, we have to, if we can't deduce, and that's the whole thing, I think, many modern skeptics, and I'll go toe-to-toe with them. I don't care. I've actually done that a few times. And surprisingly, they get along well with me because they recognize that my intention is to be skeptical, as I think we all must be. But by the same token, if they are so skeptical and yet they cannot come up with an actual hypothesis that is based on evidence, based on facts, based on logical deduction, that they have to just say, well, this person was trying to fool somebody or spoof somebody, or they were just trying to get money from the government. Look, there are far better ways to get money from the government than faking a UFO incident, okay? And that's the fundamental flaw in logic that all of these UFO arch debunkers seem to miss. I mean, if you wanted to extort money from people, if you wanted to just get rich quick, there are plenty of ways to do that don't involve, hoaxing an extremely improbable occurrence like a UFO sighting, okay? But, I digress, right? Somebody in the chat room there already said this, so I had to throw one out. So the Valentich case became one of those favorites for me because not only had I had these gripes with it from day one, but then I got to know Rhonda Rushton, and she's wonderful. And she had sent me recently a correspondence from an American researcher with his own hypothetical solutions to the Valentich case, and she sent that along to me to read recently. Another one was a case that occurred just a short distance from where I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, and that was a disappearance that occurred in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park that involved a young boy named Dennis Martin. I did first learn about this when I attended a event in Maryland, and David Paulides was giving a speech.
Oh, yes, David Paulides, the missing
411, right. I got to meet him. We actually had lunch, and we didn't get to talk a whole lot, but
I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah, no, Surlana is just like salivating into the mouth. Man, I want
to I've listened to the Coast to Coast.
Yeah, who hasn't? It's such an engaging topic. But go
ahead.
He's an interesting guy, and I don't necessarily take issue as much as I have different ideas about some of the cases than David does. But by the same token, not only have I met him, but he's also linked to a lot of articles I've written about some of the cases he deals with, and he's always had favorable things to say. And I certainly support David and his work. And good researchers sometimes do come to different conclusions, and that's fine. It doesn't have to resolve in antagonism. So that said, one of the main focuses of his initial work, which was the Missing 411 East Coast volume, dealt with the disappearance of a young boy named Dennis Lloyd Martin, which occurred in the late 1960s, 1967, I believe, which was in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And I've been to the general area where he actually vanished, which was Spence Field near the Cades Cove Wilderness. He and a number of other boys were playing. There was another family that was camping there that weekend. Their last name was Martin as well. Dennis had gone off in the direction of the Appalachian Trail and vanished. And his father, William, went chasing down the trail to try and find him. And there was a massive search effort that involved Green Berets. There were volunteers. The National Park Service was involved. Dennis was never found. He was only, I think, 6.5 years old at the time. He did have what today would be recognized as a learning disability, but he wasn't, severely affected by this. I think they said that he was about a half year behind his age group. The weird thing about that case, and this is one that even Dwight McCarter, who was a former National Park Service ranger, who he wasn't a ranger. Well, I guess he was a ranger, but I know he had also been a volunteer searcher with the Martin case. He would have been young at the time. He wrote a book about this, which I own, called Lost, which is all about disappearances in the national parks. And, specifically the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which was kind of his beat. And Dwight McCarter had told this story about this family, Harold Key, and his family. They'd wanted to go see some wildlife, and they spoke with the park ranger the very day that Dennis went missing, and they said to the park ranger, we'd like to see some wildlife. And he says, well, if you go down here to Rowan's Creek Trailhead, you hike about a half a mile up, you'll probably start seeing some wildlife. They wanted to see a bear. And Harold and his family, his son, and they start hiking up into the GSP, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, there at the Rowan's Creek Trailhead. And Harold's son at one point says to him, hey, Dad, there's a bear. But Harold said it wasn't a bear. He said there was what I could clearly see, despite the brush between us, and this man was obviously trying to remain hidden. There was what looked to be a dark-figured, rough-looking man. And he was ducking behind laurel and other foliage and everything growing on the hill above us. But immediately prior to seeing him, and this is the weird part of this story, they had described as they were walking up the trail, they heard what they described as, quote, a shrill, sickening scream.
Mm-hmm.
And I've hiked those trails since my youth, and it was so strange when I first heard David Paulides talk about this, and I thought this happened in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and so I began naturally to dig into this case myself. I've been to the locations. Harold Key and his family, they're walking up, they hear this shrill, sickening scream, and then subsequently his son sees something. Harold says it was a dark-figured, rough-looking man. But his son describes it as being a bear. He says, "Look, Dad, there's a bear." And they said whatever this guy was doing, he was trying not to be seen. And he appeared to run back up the ridge, and as he ran away, they said it looked like he may have been carrying something over his shoulder.
Yeah, I've heard this one. It's I listen to these things as I'm going to sleep. I don't know why I shouldn't do that as I'm going to sleep.
I love how you listen to these things when you're going to sleep.
And creepypastas.
And you always tell me, no, you're not watching that, or you're not listening to that.
Well, you have a different reaction. He has to keep the Doctor Who light on, which is a Doctor Who lamp with a blue light bulb in it. So when that goes on the night, I know he's had a nightmare.
The problem I have, Micah, is that my mind is so imaginative in a sense that I can really see things that...
Yeah, but you're creepy when things happen. He talks, and we won't get on that.
Yeah, we digress.
We'll get that,
but, so anyway, So,
but the Pilates thing, it would be cool to talk to him. But I can't get a hold of one of his books. I went to the site, and there's no way to buy it. I'd love to read one of his books about all this information he's got. What gets me is that he has tried to get a list of missing people from like Yellowstone or something there, and they say you can have it for like thousands and thousands of dollars, and they don't want this information out there because it's bad for their business.
I think he had appealed to the federal level and had gone to the National Park Service, and they had said that to compile the information that he wanted would have been, I think, in excess of like $1 million.
Yeah, some exorbitant amount.
And the thing is, and I'll point out again, something that David doesn't mention in his book in relation to the Dennis Martin case is the fact that there was, as Dwight McCarter described in his book Lost, there was an illegal ginseng poacher who came forward years later and who said that he had found what appeared to be the remains of a child not 9 miles away like Spence Ridge is from Rowan's Creek where the rough-looking man was seen, but 3 miles away. And this guy didn't come forward until years later because he didn't, of course, want to get nabbed by the feds for poaching ginseng up there in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
I didn't know that was a thing, poaching ginseng.
Yeah, ginseng grows naturally here in the mountains of Appalachia, but of course, if you're on federal land, you are not allowed to go in there and actually claim that. That is considered poaching, and this guy was doing that. Many people do it illegally. And he says that his story he told to Dwight McCarter later was that he had been up there looking for ginseng illegally, and he came across bones, the skull and other bones that were the remains of a young child. And this prompted a Park Service search, and a group of rangers went up there and they combed the area, but they weren't able to find anything. But I mean, it was years after the fact, you see. Mm-hmm. And the Knoxville News had reported this. David didn't talk about that in his book. I can only imagine that he must know about that, and I don't know why he left it out of the book. And that's not a critique against him, but I would be interested to know, because as familiar as he is with Dwight McCarter and his work, having interviewed him and mentioned him in the book, he in likelihood knows about that. So that's one plausible case for what may have happened to Dennis Martin. He may have legitimately been lost and was never found. As far as there being a Bigfoot, and this is something that David also, and I understand why he doesn't talk about Bigfoot very much in his interviews. David Paulides is very much interested in Bigfoot, but
yes.
he does not directly correlate that with his missing 411 research, and the reason is obvious, because the minute you talk about Bigfoot, if you want a better way to derail your credibility, I couldn't think of one, and he knows that, and so kudos to him. He's trying to reach again, a more mainstream audience with this, not just for pure purpose of profit. I mean, he realizes that this is an important subject and he can't marginalize it by tying Sasquatch to that. So I actually like what David is doing, and I think he does a very good job. And he's really stuck to his guns despite his interest, like I share, in the Sasquatch thing. And whether it's just purely folkloric or whether there's some physical substance to the mythology, I am, once again, unapologetic in my fascination with Bigfoot and with Sasquatch. And I wish more people would entertain the possibility that, hey, there could be something to this, because the anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that indeed there is at least something to this, however incredible it may seem. But as far as the Dennis Martin disappearance, I don't think that there was a Bigfoot or anything like that involved. It seems that if anything else other than a child becoming lost, disoriented, and dying due to exposure or something tragically there in the forest, if anything else happened, in likelihood it was a kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
And that by a person, the real monster, which is the monster which walks on two legs, okay?
I'd like to hear you interview David Pilates if you haven't already.
I haven't yet. I've spoken with him and met him, of course, as I mentioned, and I reached out to him years ago, and he was too busy at the time to commit to an interview, and then I contacted him again, and I didn't hear from him at that point, so I hadn't tried to reach out to him. But again, he often links to my articles about this subject, and really I would love to be able to have an opportunity to get down to brass tacks with David and talk with him about some of the things, because I feel that he and I have a lot in common. We really do.
Our friend Christopher Garitano is making a new approach to the whole Bigfoot topic. I don't know when that's coming out. The gentleman who made the Montauk Chronicles, we had interviewed him, so I'm looking forward to see how he's going to present that material.
Yeah. Well, and keep me up to date on that, because
yeah, he's on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this subject matter. I certainly am.
Yeah, when we hear some more intel, we'll definitely pass it along to you.
We have a link to his thing on one of our rotating banners on our site.
At the bottom, there's a banner to his Bigfoot project that he's working on. Speaking of projects, we're winding down to the end of the show, Micah, and we want to thank you for coming on the show. This is the point where we thank you and say, is there anything you're working on? You tell us your websites. Plug away.
Well, I appreciate that, but when I go on radio, I see the same problem that I see on social media. I mean, everybody's got a book they're selling. Everybody's got some project they're plugging. Mm-hmm. And when I can help it, I don't do that. So my name, Micah Hanks, is my website, and you can find, if you're willing to dig, you'll find everything you ever want to know about me via that website, and that's all I really have to say.
Well, we, once again, appreciate you taking the time out to hang out with us and, of course, our Space Cadets. And I'm glad that you friended me on Facebook, because I love the fact that now we can stay in touch, and if I need to pick your brain on a particular question,
I want to talk to you again about literature stuff.
Yeah, hey, we can talk about literature anytime you want to. And
yeah, well, there's a certain specific time period of literature I'm not allowed to talk about.
Oh my goodness!
Because you don't want to hear about it.
You're gonna open this can of worms, aren't
what
you?
We could do a half zombie show. You and him could talk about the zombies, and the other half I get to talk about Jane Austen.
Oh, wow! And I'll just say, by the way, excellent kisser. Okay, that coming from a time travel. I had an old friend, by the way. She used to talk about what a good kisser Jane Austen was. I can independently confirm that, but I shouldn't say too much more. You know why? Because a gentleman never tells.
Never kiss and tell. Well, everyone, this has been Micah Hanks, and I guess we'll be talking to you soon.
I hope so. Yeah, have me back sometimes. It's always really, truly a pleasure to be able to, well, I guess, commiserate with fellow geeks, and you guys certainly are in the very best way that could be said. So thank you guys so much for having me, and I
we
truly
appreciate it.
Yeah, we try to be different.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, Micah, have a good evening, and I guess we'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night to you, and good night to all of you guys out there in the chat room. It's great to see all you guys out there, including Dennis, who just linked like everything I've ever done right there.
He's our right-hand man.
Yeah, he is our right-hand man.
Sydney, he's a wonderful dude.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
night. All right, Micah Hanks. Wow, I mean, that's awesome, and he lived up to every expectation.
He won over my sister.
Yeah, well, that's good.
With his choice of best doctor.
Well, since we're winding down, this is the part where we do a little housekeeping. Next week's guest is going to be Joe Grisafi. I think I said it right.
I think so. He's a local Houston filmmaker, producer, director, actor, and he can talk some film with us. And he was a lot of fun in a pre-interview.
Yeah, and then of course at the
24th.
The 24th, everyone is invited to this show. Everyone can call in. We'll have clips extraordinaire. It is the 1-year anniversary of Spaceboy Universe. Who would have thunk it that we would have made it this far?
Yeah.
Right? And I can't wait to get into that show.
We're going to keep doing it.
Yes, we are going to plow ahead.
Like it or not, we're going to keep doing it.
This summer was a test of the emergency broadcast system, but we made it through that, and it just made our faith stronger to bring you high-quality universal knowledge to you, the space cadets that are listening. So, we are very much committed to getting, shows that you've probably guessed, just like Micah Hanks, asking him questions that you haven't heard before, and that's what we like to do.
I'll have you read some H.P. Lovecraft, and we'll talk to him.
I'm really tempted to go ahead and...
Or we can watch some movies.
And read some Jane Austen, and then surprise you, like make a fake thing, make you think that we're going to cover a topic and say, surprise, this is what we're going to be...
If you would just watch the Lizzie Bennett Diaries, that would be enough for me. That's on YouTube, and it's free.
Well, since this is a relationship of equal value...
You wouldn't even know you're looking at Pride and Prejudice.
Then, I guess I could take a little time to experience that. I'm not unwilling
If you watch the entire thing, no skipping, no missing, I'll start season 1 of *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Oh, my goodness. You should just watch that period because it's such a great show. I don't know why you're holding out on that one.
Because there's no show so great that's going to tear me away from Kindle Unlimited.
Well, anyway, the thing is, it's a great show, and Fran would back me up on that. I know she's in my corner.
She's not with us tonight because I think Fight Club lasted a little too long.
So, but you'll hear the rebroadcast of this and
her Underground Fight Club,
and she'll come back. She said, "You know what? Spaceboy is absolutely right. *Halt and Catch Fire* is an awesome show to watch, and you should."
She likes me too,
Well, I don't see her favoring a lot of your stuff.
She does. I'll take screenshots and prove it.
Okay, you'll have to prove it. Anyway, so on that magical note, Surlana, say goodnight, Surlana.
Good night, Surlana.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Surlana. Executive producer is Surlana. Social media producer is Dennis Koch. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K, K28, Mark S, and Bob N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.